All right, today we're gonna be brewing a kind of an experimental beer. Not really, it's gonna be a cream ale with vanilla. I did end up finding a vanilla bean. And so we're gonna be brewing basically a vanilla cream ale. Now, what I'm trying to do with this beer though is I'm trying to see if this will be a good style to add bacon, or bacon extract, I should say. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to brew the beer, I'm going to keg it, and then I'm going to be taking samples out of the beer to see if any bacon extract will go good with this beer, and if so, how much would go with this beer. So before committing the entire 5-gallon batch to just adding bacon extract, I'm just going to be taking samples and then figure out if it'll go well or not. So for now, this is just going to be a vanilla cream ale. Later on, we'll be adding the bacon extract. So with that being said, the recipe is very simple. It's I've got 7 pounds of American 6-row, and then I have 1.5 pounds of 2-row, and then I also have 1.5 pounds of flaked corn. So that is essentially the recipe. For hops, I'm going to be using German Spaltz. These are 3.9% alpha acids. And then for my yeast, I've got a starter going of White Labs WLP080, which is the cream ale yeast blend. So other than that, I've got a new mash tun. So this is kind of a new setup for me, maybe a little bit different than what you're used to seeing on the video. So I'm not in my kitchen anymore. And if you're wondering if I feel like a kid with a new toy, well, yes, I do. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. Start by adding all of your grains, 6-row and 2-row, and your flaked corn to the mash tun. And then do any salt additions to adjust your water. I added a teaspoon of both gypsum salt and calcium chloride. Then you're gonna prepare your strike water, heat it up to about 164 degrees. That way your mashing temperature is about 154 degrees. You're gonna let this sit for about 15 minutes. And then you're gonna go back in and stir the mash, make sure that there's no hot spots, and you're going to check your pH, make sure that you are within the 5.1 to 5.4 range. So then cover up your mash tun and then let this sit for about another 30 minutes. After that, you're gonna heat up water so that you can mash out. So you're gonna basically add boiling water to the mash tun to raise the temperature to about 170 degrees. You're gonna let this sit long enough for the grain to settle down, and then you're gonna start draining and recirculating any of the cloudy wort. If you need to use a filter or something to get rid of some of the finer particles that will make it through your false bottom, once you get clear wort out, you're gonna sparge and lauter your wort. You're gonna add everything to your kettle and you're gonna start bringing everything to a boil. Now, since this is a cream ale, we're using a lot of 6-row. It has a lot of protein, so when you bring this to a boil, you're gonna have to pay extra attention to the initial part of the boil. Make sure that you don't get a boil over. A lot of foam is gonna form up, or should form up, when you first start to boil. You're gonna boil this for about 30 minutes, and then you're gonna add all of your hops when you have 30 minutes left in the boil. You may want to stir up the boil every now and then, and make sure that all the hops are in contact with the wort. So you're gonna boil this for 30 minutes, and then you're gonna just start to cool down the wort. So set up your wort chiller or whatever you use to cool down the wort. Once you cool it down, then we're going to transfer everything to the fermenter. And then we are going to add our yeast. Made a 1-liter starter, and I just decanted as much liquid as I could and just added most of the yeast slurry. Now again, since this is a cream ale and using a lot of 6-row, I'm expecting a lot of foam or croissant to form during fermentation. So instead of an airlock, I'm going to set up a blow-off tube. The way you do that is basically set up the airlock, but instead of assembling the entire airlock, I hook up a hose to the end and I run that hose to a container with water. So this beer is going to ferment at about 68 degrees constant. And now it's time to make the vanilla and bacon extract. To make the vanilla extract, what we're going to do is we're going to get a vanilla bean. These can be a little expensive. I ended up paying about $10 for this one, but it's well worth it. And what I did is I sliced up the vanilla in half. Once you slice it up, you want to basically scrape out anything from the inside and then just throw the entire vanilla bean into a container. And then you're gonna take some vodka and just add enough to cover up the bean in hindsight. I should have probably cut up that bean in about 2 or 3 pieces so that I use a little bit less vodka, but just use enough to cover up the vanilla bean and make sure that it kills off make sure that the alcohol from the vodka kills any bacteria and it doesn't affect our beer. You can let the vanilla sit for about 24 hours or maybe even just overnight, and then at that point, whenever you go to keg your beer, you can just add the vanilla directly to the keg and then transfer the beer over that so that it mixes in much like you would mix in your priming sugar, but you're using vanilla instead. Now, the reason why I didn't add the bacon yet was because I didn't know how much I was going to add, although you can add the bacon extract at this point if you already know how much you're going to add. So let me show you how I did the bacon extract. So you start off by cutting up your bacon. I used about 2/3 of the package that I bought, and then I started to cook the bacon first. Now the trick here with cooking the bacon is you don't want to caramelize the bacon, you don't want to burn the bacon, and really what you want more than anything out of the bacon is you want the grease, all the fat that forms. And to make sure that you don't overcook the bacon, what you're looking for is like that chewy consistency, not that crispy kind of bacon, even though sometimes I like bacon a little bit crispier. I cooked it so it's more of a chewy consistency, not so much the crispy consistency. And then once you're done cooking, you want to add all the bacon into a container. And again, the most important part about this is to make sure that you get all the grease into the container because that's where most of the flavor is. And then you're going to take I used about 7 ounces of vodka, and you're going to add that to the bacon, and you're going to stir it up a little bit, and you're going to let it sit in the fridge. Now all the fat is going to basically form, and you're going to have to drain that. So what I ended up doing was I took a strainer and I let the vodka drain out, and once all the vodka drained out, skinned out as much fat as I could, I just took the bacon extract left over, which was about just over 4 ounces. You may want to add about, I don't know, 6 or 8 ounces of bacon extract, but I found that 4 ounces is about what I thought was a good amount. And here are the results.
You're on? You're good to go?
Yeah, you guys can all try it whenever you want.
New flavors. Ooh, I like it.
Tastes more vanilla than anything.
That tastes a lot of vanilla.
Make the
Oh.
bacon.
Yeah, I
Bacon, bacon?
I just got the hint of what it tasted like when we were at Native New York eating the ice cream.
I've tasted like the German chocolate beers and stuff, and they're so like you smell the chocolate, but then to me, so who's not necessarily a beer person, like I'm like, oh, I can taste this beer, like I don't taste any chocolate, or like this, like even after smelling it, like drinking, you can still taste the vanilla like the whole way.
Yeah.
Oh,
This
yeah,
is
they're
not a
like
good
that.
thing, Jorge. What were you pointing at?
Oh, just how
That head.
the foam's tasting there, because
Yeah.
It's kind of like I wasn't expecting the beer to like hold much foam because I mean the flavor of bacon comes from the actual grease, like the bacon
the
fat. And so and when I made the extract, I basically cooked a bunch of bacon, and then I took about 7 ounces of vodka, and I just soaked all the bacon in that vodka. And then I later drained the vodka, so the vodka is really what got like the bacon flavor. And then I added the actual vodka into the beer, so it's like bacon flavored vodka.
Oh, I see.
But I did separate it somewhat. Like I put the like once I extracted like all the flavor, and just drained like all the I took away all the bacon. I left it sitting like in the freezer for a little bit. And that like froze all the fat on top. It created like this layer of fat, and then I kind of skimmed that out, and then I just tried to like add as much vodka without the fat, but it had already soaked up all the flavor.
Very nice.
So like when I served the beer, like, and I took a picture, like that's why I took the picture to begin with. I was like surprised at how much that foam stayed in there, because usually like any fats or lipids, that's what takes away the foam. Like you ever see people like Timmy, like he hates foam. You'll see like people like they'll get oil from their forehead or their nose and like because the oil.
Well, so Midwest, it's definitely a cheap beer thing. Midwest and up north. I do the same thing with the cheap beer.
I like your plastic.
Oh yeah.
Hanger.
You got what's his name?
Alan.
No, the
No.
baby.
Oh,
No,
the
the
baby?
baby from the Hangover.
Oh yeah. What do you name it? It was Spanish.
Yeah.
Instead of like
Well-
an orange.
Yeah, exactly.
Like slice a strip of bacon.
I
and have it, like,
I actually do want to go to Native New Yorker, bring some of that ice cream and like just have it like next to this, because I don't know why, but I see a lot of like similarities. Like
I haven't had it.
it tastes pretty close to it. Like if you say like, okay, if you eat an ice cream, even though like that is obviously sweet, but if you're like, if I turn this into a beer, like this is what it will taste like, and it's pretty much what I just did, which is kind of weird because.
And so you made the whole recipe?
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That
from
is
scratch. I
so
just
close.
yeah.
So close.
No, that's awesome. That's
I-
really awesome.
I really like it a lot.
Thanks.
And that's kind of saying
Carlos.
something because
Carlos.
Yeah, everyone.
Maybe
Yeah.
Carlos. He's jacking his little weenus. He's jacking his little weenus. They're all hungover.
Appreciate and I mean, this is really good. I like it.
Thanks.
I do too.
Nice.
It's got a really smooth flavor too.
Thanks.
It's easy to go